John from Minnesota sends us an email. Now, this is on something that we have talked about here recently on the picking up the early, not cell phone calls, but cordless home phone calls on the radio and etc. Right? You remember we had a discussion about that.
Yeah, and there's a couple of clips on YouTube about party lines, I think. Jim Cornette on party lines.
On party? No, we did. That was Tessa Blanchard. No, she's a fine young lady, and I understand that she has regular bowel movements. But
she likes to party all the time.
You know, I used to sing that to Harley someday. She likes to party all the time.
She likes to party.
All right, John from up there in Minnesota. Mr. Cornette, I'd ask that you please withhold my name. Should you read this on this? Well, I'm not going to give your last name. So how many fucking...
Please don't say where I am and who I am.
There's a lot of Johns in Minnesota. A lot of Olies, a lot of Larses, and a lot of Johns. But anyway, I was listening to the Experience today and heard you discussing cordless phones and the FM band. You did find out that was possible, but there was some other fun that some frequency geeks, certainly not me, would have as phones progressed. You could buy police scanners back in the day. I remember that. You see, in the 80s TV shows, all the reporters had the police scanners in their car and everything. You could buy police scanners back in the day. If the frequency went high enough, you could get on the cordless phone band and hear calls. Cell phones up until the early 2000s were on the analog band. Scanners blocked out the frequencies between 868,000 or 0.000 and 898.000 megahertz, MHz, because that was the cell band. So scanners blocked those out. You didn't get on those. But there was a national retailer that sold their own line of scanners. There were also websites that were not based in the U.S., so the FCC could do nothing about it, that would tell you how to modify those scanners so you could restore the cell band. Sometimes it was as easy as pushing buttons. Other scanners required solder and pliers to modify the motherboards. I certainly did not ever attempt anything like this. You also had to have a scanner that was made before July of 1994, and it had to scan up to 900 megahertz, I guess. So he goes on to say, a guy who was certainly not me could buy the scanners online, modify them, and resell them for 4 times what we paid. Yes, you mostly heard go get bread and milk from the store when you listened, but maybe once a month you would hear something that would perk your ears up. Nowadays, it's no fun. Digital phones and no one has landlines anymore. It was a great way for a poor college kid, certainly not me, to make some money. And now he goes on, I'll leave out the last line where he says now with the very large holdings that he owns in a certain genre of business that he should probably not be spreading these things about someone, certainly not him, breaking Federal Communications Commission regulations. But that's John. A lot of them out there. There's one on every block from Minnesota. It's a big state. That certainly can't prove anything by anybody.
A lot of Johns out there, and of course, there's going to be a lot more because now with Puff Daddy being arrested, a lot of these Johns aren't going to get work. Thank you.
You did say you're feeling sick.
Thank you.
Are you possibly feverish, or is that low blood pressure will cause you to come up with that one?
My bad joke was better than this Radio Shack segment. What the hell is this?
Oh no,
I'm online at Radio Shack.
That's very interesting. that you could do those things back, and that's why that Mama Cornette would not have trusted a lot of this modern communication. She said, "Well, this doesn't seem to be private."
Who was the first person you knew that had a car? Yeah, I guess that's what you said. A phone in the car it was back then.
Yes, hence car phone, because that's where you put it, was in your car. The first one that I ever saw was somewhere when the Midnight Express and I rented a goddamn car when we were on the road with Crockett and or TBS. And no, you know what? I tell a lie. Flair had one, I think, in that. I don't know. It was close, but who's going to have a phone in their fucking car in 1985 that I'm going to be hanging out with?
Wrestling promoter. Did Watts have one? When you ran over his car.
You know, I didn't run over it. I ran past his car. I didn't get to look inside. I was not of status where I could open a goddamn door on a fucking Rolls Royce and just be sitting my sweaty ass down on the goddamn custom upholstery.
Was Jim Ross really spread eagled on top of the Rolls Royce?
He was, well, see, now the thing is, it depends on what you say and what side top is. Because he was spread eagled, because I remember his stance was, he had a wide stance with his feet apart, but he was waving his hands in the air in a manner of like he was trying to fucking stop an airplane on a fucking tarmac. And he's like, "Get away from the car." And he's standing in front of it, but he wasn't spread eagled on top of it, because hence then he wouldn't have been able to get up on top of the thing. So he was spread eagled in front of it.
That was the part of the story I always found the funniest. The idea he was trying to save the car by being on top of it.
Well, see, before I got there, he may have tried to climb it, but it was a pointed fucking, kind of a pointy hood, as I recall, and had an ornament.